Today, we're going to be using this golden opportunity to be a D1 hater. We are going to be investigating why and how Type Soul managed to betray its community not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row. But before we actually get into this, you guys do me a huge favor. Let's hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Let's get to at least 800 likes. Without further ado, let's get straight into this. Now, about 2 weeks ago, I made a video talking about Type Soul's update and how lackluster it was. And I'm not gonna lie, most of you guys actually disliked and had the opposite to say about what I was saying about the update. Most of you guys came to Type Soul's defense. And at the time, I'm pretty sure Type Soul was still averaging about 20 to 30,000 players. Literally just 2 weeks ago. Now, if you fast forward 2 weeks later, most of the people that were defending the game have completely turned against the same game they were flaming me for flaming. Funny how that works, isn't it? Type Soul is slowly declining in its player count, and just this Wednesday, the game was seen at 6,000 players, which is the lowest I've ever seen Type Soul for since its re-release. However, there is actually a good reason for this. It didn't actually happen overnight. All of Type Soul's misdoings, well, there's been a trail that's led up to this point. So to find out how Type Soul got to this point and how it betrayed its community 3 times in a row, we're gonna actually have to take a trip back in time. In summer of 2023, Type Soul officially released to the public, and this game, being a new Bleach game that was different from the rest of its counterparts being both Reaper 2 and Project Ugetsu, most people would say those 2 games have very boring gameplay in terms of progression and horribly mid combat mechanics. Type Soul coming to the scene was a breath of fresh air for most people. Type Soul had a variety of different weapons that not only were fun to use, but each of them felt different from one another, having their own M1 animations, again, that felt completely different, each weapon having their own critical attacks, which also added to the uniqueness and personality of each weapon. Shikai's, partial res, shifts, squish, swifts, all not only felt different from one another, but they weren't stupidly flashy abilities that were spammed 24/7 in battle, with no counterplay to them. It had a grounded parry-based combat with abilities that felt like it was an extension of one's kit. Bankai's, full res, and vault standage were also pretty hard to get for the first 2 or 3 weeks of the game, so most players didn't actually have them, and that actually felt kind of good. Running into players with those endgame forms was actually quite entertaining. For example, me and my guild went to Wanderin in order to do a raid over there, and we were fighting a random Shinigami, and this guy said, "You're gonna regret this," and popped his Bankai. What in the edgelord main character syndrome is this? But it was entertaining. As soon as he popped his Bankai, we all fled away from him in the VC shouting, "Yo, he has Bankai, run." I've never gotten that same feeling playing Type Soul ever again, literally. But all of this saying, this is how Type Soul led up to its first betrayal of the player base, the developers. Over the time span of summer, players were starting to see updates were exactly the same thing over and over again, just adding more transformations and abilities. Players literally had to spend money in order to experience the new form of content that was added to the game every single time. And after a while, the player base started to get a little bit suspicious of the percentages of these RNG spins, abilities, weapons, etc. Something felt a little bit off. The percentages and the numbers just didn't really correlate to how many times people were getting certain things. And around that time, one of the Type Soul developers got fired, and he actually exposed the back end of the game, which exposed that the percentages were wrong. We were being lied to, we were being deceived, which is technically illegal. And most players actually just couldn't forgive the developers for this. Slowly but surely, after this, Type Soul, the original Type Soul, went into a massive decline over the next following months. And eventually, there was genuinely only about 40 to 100 players actively playing Type Soul. It actually died. Type Soul reached double digits in concurrent players. But eventually, the developers decided to shut down the game, just completely giving up on it, as they probably knew the game wouldn't be able to be saved. Now, this is a little bit weird. The second Betrayal. Here's where the story of Cetro grooming starts. Cetro was a former developer for a Type Soul copy game, and once Type Soul died, he actually took it upon himself to form together a dev team of Type Soul copy developers in order to attempt to revive Type Soul. To a certain extent, you can almost entirely say that Type Soul got completely revived because of Cetro's incentive, and his mission was successful. Type Soul's re-release, well, it went really well, and Cetro and the new dev team managed to pull off a miracle and bring Type Soul's numbers even higher than it was in its past. Type Soul started to average over 60,000 players day in, day out, nighttime, morning time, school time, daytime, winter time, nighttime. It was doing really well, and it was granted because the game was actually fun. Honestly, it was a magical time and a very well deserved win for the dev team. However, all good things do come to an end on Roblox, unfortunately. However, this didn't happen instantly. This happened over a time span of a couple of months. Slowly, developers were being exposed for being, well, in order for me to not get yellow marked in this video, 445s. They were getting exposed for being 445. Videos, documents, pictures, all sorts of things were coming out to the public one by one for what felt like weekly exposing, trying to take down different Type Soul developers for things that some did in their past and some, well, only did a couple of months ago. And this, whether everybody knew it or not, was the start of the slow downfall of Type Soul revamp. Whether you noticed it or not, the player base was slowly going lower and lower. Multiple things happened within these time frames, the first of which was snippets promising the new content expansion of what we know as Hell. Set to work similar to how the layers in Deep Woken work, there was going to be multiple layers of Hell that players would be able to play through, explore, and experience. And that was a very long time ago. Till this day, Hell is the most hyped upcoming update for Type Soul. Everybody, including myself, is actually looking forward to experience. But almost 6 months later, this update still isn't here, and I don't think it's coming anytime soon. The second thing that happened was Type Soul was starting to actually get dry in terms of content. Similar to old Type Soul that released last year, all there was to do was Clan Wars, which most people didn't enjoy, majority of the player base doesn't take part in, and go to the AFK world to try get OP new things that people didn't want to have to pay money for. And the third thing that happened that in my opinion led to the slow decline of Type Soul was the dungeon game mode. You could go fight bosses in an instance-based area. This game mode was honestly terrible because Type Soul's PvE, well, it's honestly trash. And unfortunately, fighting these overpowered silly bosses with broken mechanics was the only way to actually experience the new content, because most of the new drops and items were locked behind either going to the AFK world, fighting these very boring NPCs, or doing Clan War, which most people were actually just boosting. Locking all the new content behind having to endure boring, endless farming sessions is not fun. And skipping forward a little bit, with Type Soul's player base further declining because of all the factors stated above, well, the developers shut down the game in order to make more content. Betrayal number 3 is kind of funny. It's not really much of a betrayal, but it's just funny. Now, after all the nonsense that happened within the second Betrayal, Type Soul closing, 3 weeks later Type Soul returns for what most people now call the lackluster update. That's what I'm gonna call it, the lackluster update. In my opinion, the only good thing to take away from this update was the Battle Royale game mode that was introduced to it. However, the Battle Royale game mode is almost unplayable. On the first couple of days, yes, you could play Battle Royale whenever you wanted, on the most part, even though it was bugged. But as current state, every time you try to play Battle Royale, you're either going to have to wait 20 minutes plus in order to actually get into a game, or you just don't get into a game. Now, the main reason for this is because for some reason the Type Soul developers are very inconsistent. I think each dev is just doing their own thing without checking on the other devs and what they publish. The main issue of Type Soul's Soul's Battle Royale mode is that the servers you enter into are usually empty, and if you're not American, you're most likely not gonna find a game because there's not gonna be a lot of people inside of a server. Now, Type Soul has a ranked game mode that has already addressed and solved this issue by players being able to pick whatever region they want to play in and the servers where they can see that has the most players inside of the ranked lobby, in order for them to just join a fuller server in order to find a match faster. But for some reason, the Type Soul developers thought it wasn't a good idea to use what they already have in the game to make matchmaking for Battle Royale a more simple and easy process. Not too sure how that works. The lack of common sense, or maybe there was a technical issue with trying to apply the matchmaking filter to the BR game mode. Regardless, not much thought was put into this, and within the time span of 3 weeks, this could have easily been averted before the game even re-released. So that's one aspect of the update, in my opinion, the best aspect of the update that's already thrown in the trash because it's almost unplayable. And if the best thing of the update's unplayable, what about the rest of the update? Well, you have the giant KT map, which I said in my video was impractical for gameplay, not only because of how big it was, but because of the lag issues that most of the player base get with it. Now, this has been addressed, and I'm pretty sure they've reverted the map back to the old T, so this isn't that bad anymore. But as well as that, you still have the Halloween update where you have to hunt the ghosts that practically never spawn, and even when they do spawn, there's other players doing them, so you never really get to do it. Wishes, quite mid, and the hybrids, well, you can grind for them, and to most players, or to some players, it is worth having it. It's a new content, but nobody wants to do 100 ranked games, not a casual player at least, only the tryhards, and nobody wants to. So Type Soul's update in a nutshell is all kind of mid. 3 weeks maintenance, which means 3 weeks that nobody could play the game, for an update that delivered almost nothing, is pretty lackluster. Yes, there's a bunch of bugs and other things, issues with the game that we're not going to talk about because every game has bugs, but I'm pretty sure the only thing the player base cares for and will return to in terms of Type Soul is the Hell game mode. Now, currently, as I'm making this video, Type Soul's sitting at 16,000 concurrent players, and it is a Saturday evening. Now, 16,000 players is still a lot of players. That is not failing by any means. However, not even a month ago, Type Soul would have had 40 to 60,000 concurrent players at the same time on a Saturday, which goes to show you how much of the player base has disappeared. Honestly, what feels like such a short time frame. Is there honestly any saving Type Soul? Yes, there definitely is. Hell needs to come out, and it needs to be good, because if Hell comes out and Hell is actually terrible, doesn't play and function correctly, and the PvE just feels trash, nobody is going to want to go through that. Well, the hands of Type Soul's actually in the developer's hand. Whether this game succeeds or fails is up to the developers at the but that is 3 quite big betrayals from the developers to the community, and the players are actually starting to notice that this game might not be worth sinking time to. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Is Agz just hating, or is the numbers a reflection of what the player base actually feels? I guess we'll find out in the near future. I love and appreciate everyone that made it to the video. Peace.